Boldwood presents Let Me Out, written by Amanda Brittany and read by Rose Robinson. Prologue. 6 weeks ago. Elliot. The painful thud against my chest forces me to the cliff edge. Stumbling, earth crumbling under my boots, I try to get my balance, but it's never going to happen. My body arcs backwards over the ridge. I cry out, arms flailing, grabbing air with useless fingers, fear fracturing all hope as I fall, 8 words jabbing my brain. I should have stayed away from Sycamore House. Part 1. Chapter 1. Now. Annie. How did I get here? This is my latest thing, talking to myself. I don't mean physically, I go on, voice muffled by the duvet over my head. I know how I ended up here, alone at 30, in a flat in Greenwich with a mould problem that aggravates my chest. Basically, I can't afford anything better in London on my salary. Junior doctors just aren't paid enough. So, when I say how did I get here, I mean mentally. Though, it has to be said, physically, I'm not in a great place either. My gym membership expired in 2015, and the closest I get to healthy eating is the strawberries in my breakfast jam. I drag myself from under the zigzag-patterned quilt and prop my head against the headboard, quitting the cute cat reel I've been watching on my phone. Sertraline will take a while to take effect, Annie, but hopefully you'll feel better once it does, the GP said a couple of weeks back. Then, with a sympathetic tilt of her head, she whizzed the prescription digitally over to Boots, not seeming to realise that for me to walk across town to the chemist was an ordeal in itself. I'm still waiting for the tablets to work, to bounce back to my former self, the self who liked socialising, who loved her job, was with a man she thought she'd spend the rest of her life with. But right now I feel lethargic, my brain foggy, too numb to cry. Perhaps that's it. Perhaps that's the effect the doctor was going for. Well, if it is, I don't like it. I glance at the digital clock on my bedside unit. 11 a.m. Sleep is weird. From the moment I hit the pillow, whatever time I go to bed, I lie awake, seeing every hour pass by. Bold, red, fluorescent numbers taunting me. Then, around 7 a.m., my body decides it's finally time to doze off and takes me on a journey through vivid, bizarre dreams. But it doesn't matter. I haven't got to get up. I'm signed off pending a chat with the mental health and well-being team. I'm not going to lie, it's lonely under this black cloud. It's pissing it down in my flat, leaving puddles of sadness everywhere. I pick up the mug on my bedside unit, take a swig of coffee. It's cold. Of course it is. I made it 5 hours ago. An unpleasant odour of not my cat's latest visit invades my nostrils. The previous tenant put a flap in the door, which means my neighbour's Moggy often pops in to use my yucca's plant pot as a toilet. I need to seal the flap, but sometimes the furry feline comes over late evening simply to snuggle, and I like that. Need that. And the yucca doesn't seem to mind that much. Its leaves only a tiny bit brown around the edges. I read a paragraph of my latest download on my Kindle. Put it down again. I should shower. It's been 3 days. But I need an injection of hot caffeine first, and maybe a chocolate muffin. Back to the question. How did I get here? Well, I think an accumulation of things brought me to this point. An affair. Not mine, I would never cheat. Except at board games as a child. No, it was my ex's affair. Though apparently, according to him, it was my fault. I never gave him enough attention, always put my job first. Okay, so he was right. But he could have said something. Talked to me rather than crawling into bed with someone else. Would you have listened, Annie? A move from renting a lovely 2-bed terrace in Finchley to this hellish hole I'm in now followed. In good news, Brenda came with me. Not that my ex ever liked her much. Not a cat lover. In bad news, Brenda died 2 weeks after we broke up. She was 16. I'd had her since a kitten. I wept for weeks. On top of that, the last 5 years have been exhausting at the hospital, and despite thinking I'd come through it reasonably sane, bang, 6 weeks ago a young woman came into A&E after having a fit. We found inoperable tumours on her brain. I held it together as I told her, despite her eyes growing wide and glassy as I broke the news, her mother sitting beside her, gripping her daughter's hand, chin crinkling. I'd dealt with these kinds of things many times, sadly, but somehow this was different. Don't ask me why. Why this girl tipped me over the edge. Why my body reacted to her pain. Why my eyes filled with tears. Why I completely broke down sobbing, soaking my scrubs. I've judged myself over and over, so no one else needs to, and I'm really not proud of how unprofessional I was. Since then, anxiety has got me by the throat, and it's squeezing and squeezing, not letting go. It's killing me. Okay, so my life isn't ruined, I tell myself on a daily basis. I'm just going through a hard time right now. Lots of people struggle with their mental health. It is what it is in today's world. Things will improve. The whole thundering heartbeat, tears, the desire to lock my door and never go out again, not helped at first by my pager going off in the middle of the night, or the calls from A&E being diverted to my phone by those who had no idea I'm a crumbling wreck, will eventually dissipate. I simply need time to get things back on track, and then I'll return to work, and everything will be sunshine and daisies once more. Well, back to normal at least. I struggle off the bed, pull on my giant yellow hooded blanket, and make my way out of my bedroom, almost tripping on the hem as I head for the kitchen and the coffee maker. As I trudge across the hallway, I spot an envelope on the doormat, recognizing my mother's flowery writing instantly, the way she dots her eyes with hearts. I bend to pick it up, letting out a groan like a man in his 90s. The letter smells of incense. Smells of Mum. I rip it open, and a handful of tiny gold fairies flutter to the floor, the kind of confetti you sprinkle on tables at parties. I pull out the letter, read her words, my heart sinking. Your brother's been in a serious accident. Please come home. Chapter 2. Snow speckles the windscreen. Wipers swipe glass. A stream of white beams race towards me. Ghost lights in the darkness, making me disorientated. I'm not coping too great travelling alone down to Devon. Even when I'm on top of my game, driving any distance is right up there with the thought of skydiving or having a tooth extracted. I hate driving, I say to nobody. And I particularly hate motorways. Bring back the horse and cart, that's what I say. Clip, clop, clip, clop. I hate that I'm going home to Devon to face the unimaginable. Hate's a strong word, Mum had said when I told her in no uncertain terms that I hated falafel. I glance at the cream envelope on the passenger seat. Mum has never liked talking on the phone, never embraced the internet. It will be the downfall of civilization, she said when friends were getting AOL. She's a letter writer. Whatever the news, however traumatic, you'll find out via a tired-looking postman wearing shorts. The driver in front's brake lights flash on, followed by hazards. I brake too, tyres skidding on settled snow. My yucca takes a tumble on the back seat. I couldn't possibly have left it. It would never have survived, not my cat. I managed to stop before slamming into the Volvo, heart thudding. There's a jam up ahead, blue lights flashing in the distance. I set off 3 hours ago, fully aware of the forecast. I knew it would be dark before I reached Ridgewater, that in my present state of imbalance it wouldn't be easy. But I had no choice. I tried calling my mother before I left. She has a landline. She didn't pick up. I asked her a long time ago why she still has the phone Dad had installed yet never uses it. She answered, "Just in case." In case of what, I have no idea. To be clear, Mum doesn't function like everyone else. I turned down the CD player. Yes, CD player. I understand Bluetooth. No, it's not some sort of dental problem. But like Mum with her letters, I prefer something tangible. Something I can pick up and hold and say, that's my music choice and I will always have it, even if AI takes over the world. People think I'm weird. Say I'm probably the only woman of 30 who doesn't use Spotify or whatever. But I don't care. I can't change who I am. The traffic moves, slowly at first. Then I'm up to 20 miles per hour and passing the accident. I don't look. I never look. If I look, it makes it real. Mum doesn't know I'm coming, because of the whole not picking up the phone thing, so I'll catch her off guard. Surprise! But then she will surely know I will respond to the heartbreaking news about Elliot. Elliot is my older brother, and despite him being Mum's favourite, he insists he isn't, but he is. I've always loved him. He's been living in the Scottish Highlands for the last 12 years, is 31, unmarried. According to Mum's letter, Elliot's accident was 6 weeks ago, and I'm trying not to feel hurt that she's only just told me. Her letter was short. A couple of lines telling me the tragic news that my brother is paralysed and hasn't spoken a word since he was found at the foot of a cliff at Ridgewater Cove. The same place Giselle Bancroft was found dead 12 years ago. I take a deep breath. Did he fall? Was he pushed? Did he jump? No, not Elliot. Surely not Elliot. I indicate to pull off the M5 at the next junction, dropping down the gears as I reach the roundabout. Less than an hour now to Ridgewater. Thank God, I'm exhausted. I'm about a mile into twisty, dark roads, driving through a tunnel of trees, bowing branches heavy with snow, when the heat in the car begins to make me drowsy, my eyelids droopy. I turn up George Ezra and buzz down the window, letting in a flurry of snow. I consider pulling over, getting out to stretch my legs, but the area's remote. No one would hear me scream, I say, pushing my foot down on the throttle, tyres skidding. When I finally pull up outside the house where I spent so much of my childhood and yank on the handbrake, I'm beat. I flop my head against the steering wheel and close my eyes, needing a moment before I face what's behind the heavy oak door of Fairy Cottage. Mum named the place. She believes in fairies. When Elliot and I were children, she would point them out to us at the bottom of the garden, and, being young and brimming with imagination, we were sure we could see them too, dancing across the grass, leaping onto logs and mushrooms. Mum's convinced they warn her of all things bad, protect her and our family. I wonder where they were when Elliot had his accident, when Dad died, when a domino effect of dreadful things happened to me. When I started secondary school, I learned quickly that telling anyone about the fairies was a big fat no. When I told my best friend Natalie Ford about them in confidence, it spread across the classroom like a bad smell, with the more popular girls finding it hysterical. It had never occurred to me before that my mum might veer towards eccentricity at best, have a mental disorder at worst, because I was sure I'd seen the fairies too, hadn't I? But then maybe I'd wanted to please Mum, and my imagination had done the rest. They had felt real to me. "They're dragonflies," my brother often said. After that, I tried to understand why Mum's belief in them was unequivocal, unshakable. She told me how it's only the flower fairies that visit, but there are other fairies. Tree fairies, water fairies, house fairies, and so many more she had yet to meet, her eyes lighting up as she spoke of them. She explained how many people believe but are afraid to speak out for fear of appearing a little crazy. "But to believe means you are at one with nature, the beautiful world we live in, that you believe in miracles." Despite her words, I never spoke of my mum's beliefs again. Now I open my eyes, straighten, rotate my aching shoulders. "Let's do this." A slice of amber light escapes through a gap in the curtains. Mum has always had double-lined curtains to keep the heat in and evil out. Smoke billows from the chimney. A cosy real fire will be roaring in the grate. I haven't seen Mum for about a year. The last time was with Elliot when we had lunch in Covent Garden, but I could only spare a couple of hours as I was due back at the hospital. I feel guilty about that now. I should have spared more time for them both. I take a deep breath before swinging open the car door and stepping onto settled snow. Pulling my calf-length coat around me, I stand for a moment. It's been 12 years since I was last here, since I left for London to train to be a doctor. Another swirl of guilt that I've never once visited Ridgewater weighs me down. I breathe in the cold sea air, my eyes drawn to the dark sky, the fuzzy half-moon. A memory floods in. Elliot and me racing down the nearby track, wearing swimmies and flip-flops, towels around our necks, itching to get to the beach and down the slope into the salty water. We had good times at Ridgewater Cove. Elliot had known the place so well. How did he end up at the bottom of a cliff? The only other property close by is Sycamore House, a rambling detached, which, as a child, I believed looked like something out of a scary movie, but now all I see is tragedy. Red brick walls holding in the pain of Giselle's death. My neck prickles as I sweep my gaze across the silhouette of the building. There's a light on in a downstairs window, but the rest of the sprawling house is in darkness. I squint. Someone is looking out, and I wonder if it's Margot Bancroft, if she still lives there. After the tragic death of her teenage daughter, I wouldn't blame her if she was living 1,000 miles away. I grab my yucca plant from the back seat, attempting to brush out the spilt soil onto the snow, and take my holdall from the boot. Swinging it over my shoulder, the bag, not the yucca, I trudge towards the front door of Fairy Cottage, pausing before I knock, as memories rush in. The loss of my father, Giselle's tragic death. I think of Elliot so helpless inside, and a desire to jump back in my car and drive away propels me backwards, a flutter of panic dancing in my chest. But the door opens, the heat of the cottage reaching out like a warm embrace. And there she is, Florence Blake, tall and willowy, hair the colour of cherries, piled messily on top of her head, her purple dress, long and flowing, meeting fuzzy booty slippers. She looks younger than her 60 years. My quirky, bonkers, beautiful mother. "Annie," she says, stepping onto the snowy doorstep and drawing me into a hug. "Elliot will be so glad you came." Chapter 3. I put down my holdall and plant before removing my ankle boots. Mum closes the door behind us and puts across a draft excluder. As I hang my coat on the crowded rack, I spot her gardening jacket and Elliot's woolen trench coat. I swallow hard, trying to hold back tears. The last thing Mum needs is for me to break down as soon as I arrive. She touches Elliot's coat, presses the sleeve against her nose. "It's strange," she says. "He went out in it on the morning of his fall, but wasn't wearing it when he was found. It turned up on the doorstep a few days later." "Who left it?" She shrugs and beckons me towards the bottom of the stairs, a small square area, made even smaller by a pile of clean clothes in a linen basket waiting to go up. "He'll be glad to see you." I would have been here sooner if you'd called me when it happened. I press my hand against the wall to steady myself, legs like liquid, as though they might give way in a moment. The thought of seeing my brother incapacitated sends shards of pain throughout my body. "I need a moment. I need to know what happened." "Of course you do. Let me get you a warm drink. You must be exhausted from the journey." She makes her way into the kitchen, ribbons of red hair falling from her loose bun. "Sit yourself down. I'll put the kettle on," she adds, gesturing towards the lounge door. I enter the warm room, taking in the tangled smell of the roaring fire and burning incense sticks. Nothing much has changed. Alice in Wonderland artwork on the walls, crystals and fairy ornaments on every surface, a shelf crammed with books that range from theories on the afterlife to mythical creatures and witch trials. An incredible wooden carving of the Green Man, made by Elliot many years ago, hangs above the fireplace. Crowded on the mantelpiece below are photographs of Elliot and me at varying stages of growing up. But no pictures of Dad. Not anymore. "Sit, please," Mum says, appearing once more after what must have been 5 minutes, but feels like seconds, and placing steaming mugs on the cluttered coffee table. She turns and touches my cheek with rough hands. "You look tired." "I am. It was a long journey." "And I'm dosed up with antidepressants," I don't say. It feels insignificant to what's happening here. She never knew about my ex anyway, and I'll spare her the loss of Brenda. Rubbing her lower back, she drops down onto the throw-strewn sofa with a groan, picks up an unpuffed cushion with a hedgehog on it, and places it on her knees. "Is your back okay?" "It's giving me jip, if I'm honest. Elliot's a dead weight." She shakes her head. "Oh, God. Sorry, that's not what I meant to say at all." She pauses for a moment, as though rearranging her thoughts. "He has to be repositioned regularly, and his carer comes a lot, but I don't like to think of your brother in one position for too long. He'll get pressure sores." "You need to be careful." "Yes, well, he's my boy, and I'll do what I can." "You could injure yourself, even hurt Elliot. It takes two to roll a patient. Let the professionals do it." She nods as though she knows I'm right. She's so pale, dark rings around her big Irish eyes. Not that she has an Irish accent. Her parents travelled across the Irish Sea in the 60s, living in East London until she was 5, when her mum died, after which she relocated to Bedfordshire with her father and 2 brothers. She has often told me how she became quite the tomboy with no female role models in her life. "How is he?" My voice trembles. "How's Elliot?" "Sit," she repeats. "Please." As I perch on the edge of a wing-back chair, she shakes her head, tears filling her eyes. "He was found at the foot of the cliff down at Ridgewater Cove by a dog walker." She runs a hand across her neck. "Miraculously, there were no broken bones, no internal injuries, but, as I said in the letter, he's paralysed and hasn't spoken." She tugs at the loose skin around her neck. He'd taken to walking down to the beach a lot while he's been staying. He'd been low, not himself at all. She wipes a tear from her cheek and picks up her drink. I cover my mouth with my hand, holding in a sob. Have you any idea why? She nods. His shop up in Scotland went into administration. He lost the apartment above too, his home. Oh, God, he loved that shop. It was his life. She shakes her head, puts down her tea without taking a sip. It seems his business partner. He has a business partner? Why didn't I know? Why didn't he tell me? But the answer is obvious. My job always came first, taking priority over everything. My brother, my mum, my ex, even my well-being. Had a business partner, she says. Krista. He made some silly investments, then took off when it all went pear-shaped. Left Elliot in a right old mess. Bastard. I agree, but Elliot didn't blame him. Everyone makes mistakes, he said. But he took off. Guilt, I'm guessing. Your brother has always been too kind-hearted, too forgiving. I'd have strung the chap from the rafters by his bits. My smile at her attempt at humour lasts seconds. When did he find out? I met Elliot in London a couple of months back. I take a moment, a heaviness settling on my shoulders. You didn't think to tell me you were meeting? We did. Mum's face morphs from sadness to disappointment. You couldn't make it, remember? Something important at the hospital. My mind flashes back. There was always some reason why I rarely met up with my mum and brother, even when they came into London. He broke down that day, so upset about the shop. I told him to come home for a while. He was hesitant at first, but he needed a roof and someone to care for him. I know he isn't a fan of Ridgewater, and, like you... Her eyes meet mine, pools of sadness once more. Well, he hadn't been back for years, but I knew he needed time out. He may be 31, but he needed his mum. He'd been here a few weeks before his accident, attempting to get his life in order. There's a long silence where I want to ask more questions, but can't seem to cobble my words together. I pick up my mug, wrapping my hands around it, the heat comforting. But I don't drink. They've done scans, blood tests, the lot, Mum says, cutting through the quiet, but found no reason for his paralysis, no reason why he's not speaking. In fact, they've suggested it could be psychological. Psychological? A fine family we are. You don't have to be crazy to live here, but it helps. My pulse quickens. Depression can be genetic. Were we both pre-programmed to feel so down? So, if it's psychological, he can get better, right? They're hopeful. Mum presses her knuckles against her mouth, a tear rolling down her cheek. It doesn't surprise me that Elliot had been low. Anyone would be after losing their business, after being let down by someone they thought they could trust. It isn't the first time he suffered with depression. When Dad died 12 years ago, he never really got over losing him, made worse by Mum banning our father's name in the house. And when Giselle died a month later and Elliot was questioned by the police, it compounded his depression. And even though her death turned out to be accidental, he never fully got over the fear of being questioned, the looks as he walked through Ridgewater. And then things took a positive turn. He entered one of his wood carvings into a competition and won, collecting his award and prize money at a grand ceremony in Scotland. He fell in love with the Highlands, where he opened his shop and never looked back. Until now. I finally take a sip of my drink. Wince. Mum always makes strong tea. I stare at her for a moment. Her head is down, loose tendrils of hair falling about her face as she stares into her mug. The specialist called his condition conversion disorder. She looks up, her eyes meeting mine. I've never heard of it. She shakes her head. Call yourself a doctor? Her comment hurts. Yes, but I don't specialise in psychological disorders. Well, basically, there's no explanation for Elliot's symptoms. No known medical condition, no neurological disease to explain them. So, what? They can't find anything wrong with him? Exactly. Yet he's paralysed and hasn't said a word since the accident. Silent for 6 whole weeks. It's agonising seeing him like that. Tears fill my eyes. How the hell are you going to cope with this? I whisper to myself. Sorry? Did you say something? I shake my head. It's nothing. Are you okay? You don't seem quite yourself. I'm just worried about Elliot is all. Of course. She leans forward, taps my knee. We all are. Another sip of strong tea. Will he know me? There's no reason to think he won't. No reason to think he's not fully aware of what's going on around him. And they're hopeful his symptoms will disappear as quickly as they came. The neurological physiotherapists come regularly, making sure he keeps his muscle strength, so as soon as he's well again, well, she's trying to sound upbeat. She's doing a crap job of it. That's good, I say. Yes, she shrugs. Well, I hope so, though this could go on for months or more. Her fake optimism has left the building. How can this be happening? My voice breaks, and I put down the drink I've barely touched, slopping tea onto a wildlife magazine. Sorry, I say. Don't worry about that. Mum's never been overly house-proud, though the cottage is clean. Lived in, that's what Mum says. My body starts trembling. I take a deep breath, attempting to keep myself in check, worried Mum will realise I'm completely useless, that I've brought yet another burden to her door. Natalie Ford knocked last week. I'm glad of her change of subject, though taken aback that my once best friend would come to Fairy Cottage. Natalie? I thought she left Ridgewater years ago. She did. Moved to Hertfordshire with her parents, if I remember rightly. She's been back a couple of months, I think. With her parents? They're dead. Both of them. Her father died several years ago, a brain aneurysm. Her mother more recently after several years of battling cancer. That's awful. I struggle with my emotions. I didn't like Natalie's parents. They controlled their daughter through her teenage years, made her life hell. So, how is she? She seemed, I don't know, agitated. And I don't mean to be unkind, but she looked very different and not in a good way. Far too thin. She touches her hair. And all that pretty blonde hair she had in her teens. Gone. Chopped off. Dyed black. I try to conjure up the image, but can't, still seeing the beautiful young girl I spent so much time with. What did she want? She wanted to speak to you or Elliot. I told her you were in London doing whatever you do in London. Being a doctor, when I'm not having a breakdown. And that Elliot had been in an accident and was not up to seeing people right now. She didn't even ask how he was. And you've no idea why she wanted to see us? Mum shrugs. She gabbled on about hoping you might remember something that happened years ago, not making herself clear. Natalie left Ridgewater with her parents when we were 18, the same year my father and Giselle died. My once best friend had stopped speaking to me and Elliot before she left, would turn and walk the other way if she saw us. We never knew why, only that her silence had followed a drunken night in Sycamore Wood. I approached her once, asked her why she was ignoring me, if I'd done something to upset her, but she ran from me as though I was the devil. If she couldn't bear to talk to us back then, why now? Anyway, Mum says, she's a receptionist at the vet's in Ridgewater. I noticed her when I took one of the hedgehogs down there the other week. The little chap had come out of hibernation, and before you say it, I know that can happen. It's not what I was going to say, but I wanted to make sure he was okay. And was he? Was he what? Okay? The hedgehog? Yes, all good. Mum curls a straying hair behind her ear. You should go up and see your brother. Pull off the Band-Aid. I shake my head. I don't want to see him. Not yet. It will make it real. I don't want it to be real. Please don't make me see him. Why do I feel like I'm 10 years old? She puts down her tea too, rises and, taking my hand, pulls me to my feet. She's a good 5 inches taller than me, and I feel small against her, despite being 5'5". I'm not sure I can, I say, but she's giving me no choice. She's pulling me across the room, out into the hallway, where she stops, her sad eyes taking her up the stairs. I stand beside her, taking in the worn carpet, the banister in need of a paint job, the pictures of flower fairies. He has a main carer, lovely Michael, who comes in 3 times a day, often bringing an assistant with him to help with washing and repositioning, that kind of thing, she says, finally moving, keeping hold of my hand as I follow. They suggested Michael live in, here at Fairy Cottage, but I didn't want that. Some days it's like Piccadilly Circus with doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, you name it, popping in and out. But I prefer that to Elliot being in a hospice or staying in hospital. I couldn't have that. I couldn't have him all alone. Not my boy. We stop on the landing, a smell of disinfectant of some sort and another lemony scent reaching my nostrils. I do everything I can, Annie. I know you do, Mum. I place my hand on her arm. He's lucky to have you. I'd like to have a stair lift fitted so he can come downstairs, and they've talked about an electric wheelchair, but it all feels so long-term. Well, let's hope he gets better quickly so he doesn't need either. Yes, let's hope so. It wasn't easy for the health team to get him up here with all his needs, and I wonder now if I should have put him in the dining room. She's waffling, struggling to keep her voice even, seeming to delay us entering his room now we're up here. A sliver of light peeps from under the door. A ceramic sign with a little red tractor says, Elliot's room. My heart races, my body aches. Once I see him, there's no going back. Mum pushes open the door and leads the way, reaching back for my hand and squeezing, tugging me inside. I let out a gasp. I should have known what to expect. I've treated bedbound patients many times, but this is my brother, and I'm totally unprepared for what I see. Growing up, everyone said my brother and I looked alike. The same dark hair, the same blue eyes as Dad's, Mum's slim, sharp nose. But as we grew into teenagers, he would keep his hair cropped short and was always more tanned than me, and our similarities became less. Today, as he lies so still in a specially equipped bed, he looks nothing like me. But then he looks nothing like the Elliot I know either. He's so still, so pale, so lifeless. I place my fingers against my lips, holding in a cry. I can't go to pieces. I need to convince Mum I'm strong and here to support her. Support Elliot. She hurries across the sterile room and sits down on one of the plastic chairs beside him, holding his hand, but I can't move from the doorway, my eyes roaming the room that was his as a boy. A large washable rug covers the carpet. On one wall there are still the framed posters of Marvel heroes he put up in his teens, but his CDs and DVDs, his Pokemon bedspread, his Harry Potter and Goosebumps books are all gone. Annie's here, love, Mum is saying close to his ear, and my eyes return to my brother. My beautiful, helpless brother. There is life in his eyes, and he opens his mouth as though to speak. But whatever he wants to say is locked inside. They've done scans, but found no reason why he's paralysed, why he's not speaking. Elliot, I say, far brighter than I feel, taking a step forward. It's the drip, the catheter, but particularly the feeding tube that gets to me. The memory of him stuffing his face with burgers and pizzas, laughing as he knocked back a bottle of lager. Oh, Elliot. Mum sees me looking. It's hopefully temporary, she says, patting the seat next to her. I move towards him, sit down next to Mum, the chair creaking into the quiet. Hey! I stroke his arm, glancing at Mum, begging her with my eyes to fill the silence, because if I speak, I will sob. Can you feel your heart when it breaks? I think you can. It's snowing, Mum says, answering my prayers. Remember that giant snowman you and Annie built when you were about 10? And I cried when it melted, I say, finding my voice. And you said that the snowman was magic, that he would be back next year. There's no response from Elliot, and his eyelids flicker down. Sorry, we're closed. If I stay a moment longer, I'll lose control of my emotions. I know I will. I'll talk to you again tomorrow, Elliot, I say, getting to my feet. Mum picks up a Dan Brown book. I'll stay a while. Does he like Dan Brown? I ask, imagining him listening to a genre he might not enjoy, unable to protest, though I'm pretty sure he's asleep. It was with his stuff. She nods towards an empty holdall by the window, though he may well have read it. I glance towards the corner of the room. The wardrobe door stands ajar. A red and black checked shirt pokes out. Imagining him wearing it as he carved his wooden figures makes my stomach twist. My eyes move to some Pokemon stickers from his childhood on the cupboard door. Impossible to remove. You'll need to make up the bed in your old room, Mum says as I make my way towards the door. Sheets, pillowcases and a quilt cover are in the airing cupboard. As I leave the room, I glance back just once to see her open the book and begin to read. She loves her son so much. But then, what's not to love? My brother has always been the best. Chapter 4. I trip on the hem of my hooded blanket, launching myself into the kitchen, my hands stuffed in giant pockets. Mum turns from igniting gas under the kettle and grabs her chest. Oh, my word, you startled me. You look like a monk. Since when do monks wear yellow? A duck, then. A giant yellow duck. I smile. Daisy or Donald? My eyes land on a lonely blueberry muffin on the worktop. Is that going begging? For breakfast? Annie, you need to look after yourself. Have granola, fruit, Greek yogurt. I don't recognise any of these words. Maybe later, I say, biting into the muffin. It felt odd spending the night in my childhood bedroom, the bed so much smaller than I remember. The snowed-in silence in this almost isolated part of Ridgewater feels strange after the hustle and bustle of London. I struggled to get any sleep, but then that's nothing new. Last night all I could think about was Elliot in the next room, so still, being fed through a tube. Mum's gaze takes her out through the window, and I move in next to her. Some of the snow has gone, and a watery sun brightens the area. The garden is deliberately wild in places. It's a beautiful view, even more so from the upstairs windows where you can see Sycamore Wood and Ridgewater Cove in the distance where rough waves hit against the shoreline. The fairies will be out today, Mum says. I've seen 2 this morning. They adore the winter sunshine. She looks at me. Did you look in on Elliot on your way down? I shake my head, flick a crumb from the corner of my mouth. I'll go up later. Truth is, when I passed his bedroom 5 minutes ago, I felt a surge of panic, couldn't face opening the door. I know I have to, that he can hear, think, and that he already knows I'm here, and if I don't go in to see him, he'll believe I've abandoned him, that I don't care. Once we're holding a mug of coffee each, and I've quickly swallowed down my sertraline tablet without Mum seeing, we head into the lounge and sit down. I've watered your yucca, she says. Thanks, but there was no need. It only needs watering every 10 days. I know. Of course you do. But it looked so dry. To be fair, it's probably been more like 2 weeks since I gave the poor thing a drink. Thanks, I say again. It smells a bit funny. I put it out back in the lean-to. Okay. It may need a change of soil. I can do that. Wear gloves. Always do. We're silent for a few moments, but my mind races on, and I say, why did you wait so long before telling me about Elliot? I'd promised myself I wouldn't ask, but now I'm here, I can't help myself. Elliot's accident was 6 weeks ago. Why didn't she pick up her landline and call me? If I'm honest, she moves a cushion onto her lap like a shield, her eyes meeting mine. I wasn't sure you would come. What? Why? You haven't been to Ridgewater since you left all those years ago. Your studies, then your work, always taking priority. She breaks eye contact. If we didn't come to London, we would never get to see you. I tense. She's right. When I left Ridgewater, my only thought, my only dream, was to become a doctor. I don't know. Maybe I felt I needed to prove something to Mum, to myself. And look how that's turned out. I'm here now, aren't I? I sound snappier than I intended. Yes, but for how long? She takes a sip of her drink. You're always so busy. I can stay a while. I have no intention of telling her why, that I've crumbled under the pressure of a job I'm sure she never thought I'd succeed in. But then Mum was never impressed that I'd studied hard, that I'm Dr. Annie Blake, with letters after my name. In fact, she was always more impressed that Elliot built her a hedgehog sanctuary in the garden, that he had made wooden sculptures and grew vegetables and herbs. The fairies love him. I get it to some degree. Mum was so young when her mother died, only remembers being brought up by her father. She told me once how she would play football or tag in the street with her brothers until the sun went down. That she always thought of herself as one of the boys when she was young. Perhaps her daughter felt alien to her. I dangle my arm over the side of the chair, and she reaches over and touches my hand, her eyes glistening. The consultant explained that the fall is the reason Elliot's like he is, she says. But the fact he was low prior to that made it easier for his brain to succumb to trauma. Antidepressants are being administered through the drip. I need a change of subject. Anything to push away the thick black clouds hovering above us. I noticed lights on at Sycamore House last night. Does Margot Bancroft still live there? Mum flicks a tear from the corner of her eye and pulls her hand away from mine. With a brusque tone, she says, "Why would you bring her up?" "I just wondered is all." Okay, perhaps I should know better than to discuss Margot with Mum. It was at Sycamore House that Dad died 12 years ago of a heart attack. His death was a terrible shock, though not completely unexpected. He'd had a heart condition for some time, and during the months prior to his death, he'd been working from home, Skyping his lectures on theoretical physics to his university students. What was a shock was that he died in Margot's lounge, half-dressed. Margot broke down at the time, confessed they were having an affair, claimed she was desperately sorry, begged Mum to forgive her. She never has. I've never believed she was having an affair with my dad. I'm not quite sure how to explain his state of undress or Margot's confession, but he wasn't the type to stray. Plus, he was ill at that time. And despite the fact he believed that everything could be explained by mathematics or physics, and that fairies were fantasy, my parents, Richard and Florence Blake, were soulmates. They would stay up late listening to vinyl LPs, Fleetwood Mac or Genesis, talking and laughing. They shared a love of wildlife. Dad, a keen birdwatcher, would sit in his study for hours with binoculars, recording the birds he saw in Sycamore Wood or along the rocky coastline. I often caught my parents holding hands on their nature walks or grabbing sneaky kisses when they thought Elliot and I weren't looking. Yes, I'm convinced my father wasn't having an affair with the glamorous Margot Bancroft. Whatever the reason for his visit to Sycamore House that day, it wasn't that. Dad's death happened a month before Margot's teenage daughter Giselle was found dead at the bottom of a cliff at Ridgewater Cove. The irony that Elliot was found in the same place hasn't escaped me. At first, there was talk that Giselle's untimely death was suicide. Then came the suggestions that it was murder. In the end, the coroner ruled it as accidental. Mum never did offer Margot her condolences, said the fairies had told her that she'd got her just desserts after having an affair with my dad, that the winged creatures believed there was evil in Sycamore House and Margot was a wicked woman. It didn't help that on the morning Giselle's body was found, the police came knocking on our door, questioning Elliot about her death. If you must know, Mum says now, taking a gulp of her coffee. Margot still lives there. I avoid her, and so should you. I was wary of Margot as a child. There was something about her. She was like a beautiful queen in a fairy tale, and I was never quite sure if she was as wonderful as she seemed. If perhaps she was hiding another side. If she might turn into a wicked witch. Once we've finished our drinks, I rise to my feet. I'm going to walk into Ridgewater, Mum, I say, surprising myself. Has the desire to venture outside really returned? Are the tablets starting to work? Or is it more to do with the fact I won't bump into work colleagues or my ex? I need a breath of fresh air. I leave the lounge and head up the stairs for a shower. As I pass Elliot's room, I place my splayed palm against the door and breathe deeply. I'll see you when I get back, I whisper, bashing down a surge of guilt, attempting to convince myself that if I don't take care of my own mental health, I'll be no use to my mum or brother. Despite the pale sun brightening the area, there are still patches of snow, and my car is iced over. I pull on my woolly hat and gloves and set off past Sycamore House. It looks as it always has. Gothic, rambling, magnificent. An incredible house steeped in tragedy. I hurry by with my head down, the thought of having to talk with Margot making my skin prickle. "Please don't see me," I whisper, risking a glance at the row of upstairs rectangular windows, heavy wooden shutters closed at every one. I pull my gaze to the unmade road in front of me, quickening my step. I'm almost past when I hear her voice. Crap. "Annie!" she calls, and I turn to see her on the doorstep, waving. She must be in her late 40s, early 50s by now. Slim, willowy, wide-legged cream satin trousers and a cashmere sweater making up her attire. Her dark hair is scooped up into a perfect bun, and even from this distance I see her scarlet lipstick. "How lovely to see you, darling. It's been years." 12, I'm tempted to say. Just after Giselle died. After my father died in your house. "I'm heading into town," I call, despite part of me feeling I want to run back to Fairy Cottage and never leave. "Knock on your way back, please," Margot calls as I go to step away. "I've made cake." I want to say I can't, that I'm busy, but she has the ability to make me feel like a child with her cut-glass English accent and stiff, strong exterior. And there's something else drawing me to her. The teenager who lost her father still needs to know if they really were having an affair. "Okay," I say, raising my hand, before turning to continue on my way. Chapter 5. I walk over the rickety bridge that crosses the pretty river, feeling strangely okay that I'm out in the wild. It's as beautiful in Ridgewater as it was when I was young, and there's something about the clear sea air that's helping me think coherently. I pass my old junior school on the left. I loved it there as a child. From the time I was in year 3, Elliot and I would walk the 2 miles from Fairy Cottage each morning and run home again at the end of the day, rucksacks banging against our backs, shoelaces undone.